On Father's Day, my daughter handed her father-in-law a $15,000 cruise paid with my money, then tossed me a $2 lottery ticket and laughed. If you win, half is mine. Everyone smiled. I smiled too. But inside, something snapped. That tiny slip of paper, the joke she used to shame me, would flip our family upside down. What she thought was a prank became my proof, my power, and her lesson. Tonight, I'll tell you how a $2 insult turned into justice and why I finally stopped being silent. If this hits you, please like, subscribe, and watch till the end for the twist. I should probably start at the beginning, so you understand why that Father's Day cut so deep. My name is Stephen. I'm 68 years old, a retired mechanic who spent most of his life under the hood of cars, covered in grease, and coming home so tired I sometimes fell asleep in my chair before dinner. For decades I ran a small shop in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing glamorous, just honest work, day in and day out. My wife Linda passed away when our daughter Carla was in college. After that, it was just the two of us. I did everything I could to keep her life steady. Tuition, books, rent. I worked double shifts at the garage, picked up side jobs fixing tractors and lawnmowers, even sold my prized 1969 Camaro to cover her final year at the university. That car was my dream, but her future meant more to me. I thought she understood the sacrifices. Back then, she used to call me her hero. She'd say, "Dad, when I graduate, I'll make you proud. You won't have to worry anymore." I clung to those words when the nights got long and the bills piled up. But somewhere along the way, Carla changed. Or maybe the world around her changed her. After college, she married Eric Johnson, a financial advisor from an old money family. His father, William Johnson, was a respected businessman in town. Eric lived in perfectly pressed shirts and thought in terms of country clubs, investment portfolios, and weekend golf trips. My world of wrenches and oil stains didn't measure up. At first, I told myself I was imagining the distance. Carla still called, still visited now and then, but slowly, the conversations shifted. She no longer asked how I was doing. Instead, she bragged about Edward, the man she started calling Dad, in front of me. Dad Edward helped us with the down payment on the house. Dad Edward paid for Jake's private school. Dad Edward got us into the club. Each time, the words cut deeper. I was her father, yet she praised another man, as if I were invisible. When she brought Eric's family to my home for the first time, I saw it plain as day. They walked through my modest house like they were touring a museum of poverty. My thrift store curtains, my old sofa, the photographs of family vacations taped into cheap frames, nothing impressed them. Edward glanced at my worn-out recliner with thinly veiled disdain, as if wondering how his daughter-in-law ever sat in such a chair. I tried to ignore it. I poured them coffee, offered pie, kept the small talk going. But then Carla said something that still echoes in my mind. Eric and I are so lucky to have two fathers, one who taught me to dream big, and one who taught me to work hard. She looked at Edward when she said dream big. She looked at me when she said work hard. It was supposed to be a compliment, but in her tone, it felt like an insult. Work hard as in struggle your whole life and end up with nothing. Dream big as in live the life that really matters. Oh, that was the first time I realized I wasn't just being pushed aside. I was being compared, measured, and found lacking. From then on, the favoritism only grew. Holidays became awkward. She would bring Edward lavish gifts, a leather golf bag, imported wine, expensive watches. For me, socks. A mug. Once, a half-used gift card she admitted had been lying in her drawer. I told myself gifts didn't matter, that love was what counted, but love felt one-sided. The last Thanksgiving before the infamous Father's Day, the pattern showed again. Around the dinner table, Eric raised a toast to his father. "To Dad, who has given us the life we dreamed of." Glasses clinked. Laughter filled the room. Carla kissed Edward's cheek, and I sat there with my turkey growing cold, invisible. When the meal ended, Edward pulled Carla aside, pressed an envelope into her hand, and said, "For the baby's future." I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. I wondered if the baby needed braces someday. Would I even be asked to help? Or would Edward handle it while I was quietly excluded? You see, favoritism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's 1,000 little cuts. The way she compared cars. Dad Edward drives a Lexus. Dad Stephen's truck barely runs. The way she introduced him to her friends. This is my father-in-law. He's been such a blessing to our family. And then to me, this is my dad. He's retired now. Retired. As if my life's work was just over. As if there was nothing more to say. I knew she respected money, maybe even worshipped it. But I still believed, deep down, that blood mattered more. That a daughter's love for her father couldn't be replaced by a cruise package or a checkbook. I kept telling myself she was just young, just dazzled by wealth, and that one day she'd remember the nights I rocked her to sleep when her mother was gone, the mornings I packed her lunch, the afternoons I drove across town to watch her school plays even when I was dead tired. That's why, when Father's Day came around, I hoped for a small sign, just a sign that she still saw me. A card with real words in it, a framed photo. Even just a simple dinner together, where I wasn't compared or overshadowed. Instead, she humiliated me. She took my money, funneled it into a luxury cruise for Edward, and tossed me a lottery ticket like I was a beggar at her table. She smirked, she laughed, and Edward joined in, puffed up with pride. That dinner was more than disrespect. It was the culmination of years of favoritism, years of being diminished, years of being seen as second place in my own daughter's life. And though I smiled that evening, though I pretended to be calm, inside I was already breaking, because a man can take only so many small cuts before he finally bleeds. Father's Day was supposed to feel warm, wasn't it? A table filled with family, laughter, a sense that you were appreciated at least once a year. That morning I set out my best tablecloth, the one Linda had bought decades ago at a flea market, faded but still sturdy. I roasted a chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, simple, honest food. It was my way of saying, "You're welcome here." I wanted the day to go smoothly. Maybe, just maybe, Carla would bring me a card, or a framed photo of her family with a note about how much I meant to her. I would have been happy with that. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to see her standing there with Eric at her side, both dressed like they were attending a business luncheon instead of visiting me. Behind them, Edward strolled in, crisp shirt, polished shoes, carrying himself like a king entering a peasant's hut. "Dad, here's your gift," Carla said loudly, before she even kissed my cheek. She pulled a small, crumpled envelope from her purse and tossed it across the table. It landed next to my plate with a faint flutter. I opened it with my rough hands, smoothing out the paper inside. A lottery ticket. $2. "Very thoughtful, sweetheart," I managed, forcing a smile. My heart sank, but I kept my face calm. Before I could say more, she clapped her hands dramatically. "Oh, wait. I haven't given Edward his gift yet." Her voice rang with rehearsed excitement. From behind her chair, she pulled out a glossy, ribbon-wrapped box. The kind of gift you see in jewelry commercials. The ribbon shimmered under my dining room light. Eric straightened his posture as if he already knew what was inside. Edward leaned forward with anticipation, his manicured hands reaching. Carla opened the box with a flourish. 2 weeks in the Mediterranean. First-class cruise. Balcony suite all-inclusive. $13,000. She stretched out the tickets like they were golden scrolls. The room shifted. My tiny lottery ticket burned in my hand while Edward's cruise tickets gleamed in his. Edward let out a satisfied chuckle. "Now this is a proper gift," he said, his voice carrying the weight of entitlement. His eyes locked on mine across the table. "Your father taught you well, Carla." The words stung like acid. My sister Margaret cleared her throat uncomfortably. My nephew Tommy looked down at his plate. Even little Jake glanced up from his phone, confused. No one defended me. "Actions speak louder than words," Carla replied proudly, glancing at Edward. Their eyes met in a way that made my stomach twist. She gestured toward the lottery ticket in my hand. "Some people show love through grand gestures. Others—" Her voice trailed off with a smirk. I steadied my hand so they wouldn't see it tremble. "I appreciate the thought, Carla. Really." "Oh, it's just a joke," she waved dismissively. "But seriously, Dad, if you hit the jackpot, half of it is mine. I paid for it after all." She laughed. Edward joined in, the sound low and smug. The laughter cut deeper than words ever could. Around me, faces flushed with discomfort. Margaret poked at her food. Sarah stared at the photos on my wall as if they'd suddenly become fascinating. My family wanted to disappear into the wallpaper. No one spoke up for me. No one said, "That's cruel, Carla." Edward fanned the cruise tickets like playing cards, savoring his moment. "This is what families do. Generosity. Respect." His voice carried judgment. I heard what he was really saying. "You failed. You gave her nothing worth bragging about." I nodded, throat tight. "Sounds wonderful." Carla reached over, patting Edward's hand. "He deserves it, Dad. He's always been there for us, financially helped us buy our house, paid for Jake's school, even covers our club membership. He's earned something special." The words landed like a hammer. Did my sacrifices mean nothing? The double shifts? The 16-hour days to pay her tuition? The car I sold so she could graduate? In her eyes, all of that was just what fathers were supposed to do. Edward's money was what mattered. "Well," I said quietly, swallowing my pride, "I hope you both enjoy the cruise." Edward slipped the tickets back into their velvet box, closing it like a sacred relic. "We will," he said. "This is how families treat each other." The conversation moved on surface chatter about the weather, about Jake's soccer team, but I barely heard any of it. My focus stayed on the flimsy slip of paper in my hand. $2. The same amount I used to give Carla for ice cream when she was 7. Back then it made her beam. Now it was a joke, a humiliation. Dinner ended quickly after that. Chairs scraped back, coats were slipped on. "We'll see you soon, Dad," Carla said, as if nothing had happened. Her perfume lingered after the front door shut. Car doors slammed. Engines roared. I sat alone at the table, staring at the lottery ticket. The last of the evening sun faded from the room, leaving shadows on the walls where family photos hung. Photos of vacations I worked overtime to afford, birthdays I planned on a shoestring budget, moments where I believed my efforts mattered. Now I held proof that to my daughter they never did. I ran my fingers across the numbers on the ticket. $2. $2, when she'd taken $15,000 from my account to give to another man. My chest tightened. Anger, humiliation, heartbreak, they tangled together until I couldn't tell which one hurt more. That was the moment right there, when I knew this wasn't just about a gift. It was about years of being overshadowed, dismissed, replaced. It was about a daughter who valued another man's wallet more than her own father's love. I folded the ticket carefully, slid it into my pocket, and whispered to myself, "This isn't over." Oh, because that night, at that table, beneath the cheap light of my dining room, a battle line was drawn. I just didn't know yet how big the war was going to be. The morning after that humiliating dinner, I tried to carry on as usual. Routine has always been my anchor. Coffee at 7 a.m., toast with peanut butter, then a quiet half hour with the newspaper at my kitchen table. But that morning, nothing tasted right. The laughter from the night before still echoed in my ears, Carla's smirk, Edward's smug approval, the silence of everyone else. I told myself I'd let it go. Just another cruel joke, just another reminder that I no longer fit in her world. But as I reached for my laptop to pay the monthly bills, a knot twisted in my stomach. 40 years I'd been doing this, careful budgeting, counting every penny, never once overdrawing. Old habits from the days when a single missed payment could mean losing the house. Even in retirement, I checked my account with the same discipline. My eyes skimmed down the usual transactions. Grocery store, utilities, gas. Then, halfway down the list, I froze. Premium Travel Services. 15,327. I blinked. My first thought was that I'd misread it. I refreshed the page, rubbed my eyes, even tapped the screen as if it were some kind of glitch. But there it was, clear as day. $15,327. I scrolled to the date. Just over a week ago. A Thursday morning, I'd been at home, fixing a loose hinge on the back door. I hadn't gone near any travel agency. My stomach dropped. Slowly, realization dawned. Carla. She still had access to my account. Years ago, after Linda passed, I added her name so she could help me manage things in case of an emergency. I'd forgotten all about it. She was my daughter, my only child. I never imagined she would abuse that trust. But she had. The cruise. The $13,000 gift she'd presented so proudly. She hadn't paid for it with her own money. She had stolen it from me. I sat there, staring at the screen, my coffee growing cold. My hands trembled on the keyboard. I had worked for every cent in that account. Thousands of hours under car hoods, grease under my fingernails, aching joints, late nights that stole pieces of my health. And she had taken it without asking, without even hesitating. My heart hammered as I reached for the phone. I dialed her number, my voice shaking when she finally answered. "Hello, Dad," she said, her tone flat, like I was interrupting her day. "Carla," I said, trying to steady myself. "I'm looking at my bank statement. There's a charge over $15,000 from premium travel services." Silence. Then a light, dismissive laugh. "Oh, that. I bought Dad Edward his cruise. He deserves something nice for once." Her words hit me like a slap. You took $15,000 from my account without asking." "I didn't take anything, Dad. It's family money. I just used it for a family gift." "Carla, that's theft," I said, my voice breaking. "It's not stealing when it's family," she snapped. "Eric has always been there for us financially. He's helped us when we needed it. This was just returning the favor." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm your father, Carla. I raised you. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. Every dollar in that account came from my blood and sweat." She cut me off. "And Eric helped us move beyond that. He showed us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous. Not hoarding money like you do." I couldn't breathe. Her voice, so cold, so dismissive, wasn't the voice of the little girl who used to cry on my shoulder, who used to call me her hero. This was someone else. "Carla," I whispered, but the line went dead. She'd hung up. I sat there, phone heavy in my hand, the dial tone echoing in my kitchen like a funeral bell. My chest ached as I looked around the room at the family photos on the wall, at Linda's old china in the cabinet, at the modest furniture I'd bought piece by piece. My life, my sacrifices, my love it all, suddenly seemed worthless in her eyes. I stared at the lottery ticket lying on the counter, the one she'd thrown at me like a bone to a dog. Even that, I realized, had been bought with money stolen from me. She had used my own funds to humiliate me. The irony was almost laughable. Almost. Instead of laughing, I felt something inside me break. I crumpled the ticket in my fist and tossed it into the trash. The sound of paper hitting the bin was louder than it should have been. It felt like I was burying years of hope, of trust, of believing that no matter how far she drifted, she was still my daughter. For the rest of that day, I couldn't sit still. I walked through the house like a ghost, each room echoing with memories that now felt tainted. I ended up outside, pacing the neighborhood, trying to breathe. The air was crisp, filled with the sounds of lawnmowers, kids playing, neighbors calling to each other. Mrs. Patterson waved from her garden. "Beautiful day, Stephen," she called. I waved back, forcing a smile. Beautiful day, sure, for everyone else. As I passed the Henderson house, I saw Tom teaching his grandson how to throw a baseball. The boy's laughter carried on the breeze, pure and simple. My throat tightened as I remembered teaching Carla the same way, her small hands gripping the ball, her face shining with joy when she made her first throw. When had that little girl disappeared? When had money erased everything I'd given her? I didn't know the answer. All I knew was this. The first battle line had been drawn. She had taken from me, humiliated me, and then justified it without a trace of guilt. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the words, "It's not stealing when it's family," replaying over and over. My stomach churned, my hands clenched into fists. I had no idea then how far she would go, but I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The morning after that phone call with Carla, I woke with a pounding headache, the kind that comes from a night of restless tossing and turning. My house felt smaller, heavier, like the walls themselves carried the weight of betrayal. I shuffled into the kitchen, brewed a pot of coffee, and stared at the bank statement still open on my laptop. But then I remembered. I had options. I could take control. For too long I'd let my daughter have unchecked access to my finances because I thought trust meant leaving the door open. Trust, I realized, was something she no longer deserved. So, I picked up the phone. First National Bank, this is Rebecca. How can I help you today? My voice came out steadier than I felt. I need to revoke authorized access on my account. My daughter has been making unauthorized purchases. She didn't gasp, didn't judge. She just walked me through the process, step by step, like tightening bolts on an old engine. 15 minutes later, Carla's access was gone. The account was locked under new passwords. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Control. It was small, maybe, but it mattered. The money I had left was safe. For once, I wasn't waiting to be blindsided by another family expense. I even let out a breathless laugh. It wasn't joy exactly, it was relief. To celebrate, I put on my jacket and stepped outside. The air smelled of freshly cut grass, the kind of ordinary scent that has a way of calming a man's nerves. I walked down Maple Street, greeting neighbors as I went. "Morning, Stephen," called Mrs. Patterson, bent over her rose bushes. "Morning, ma'am," I said, tipping my head. I watched Tom toss a ball with his grandson again, laughter echoing across the yard. I thought of the simpler days with Carla, the bubblegum ice cream cones. I bought her for $2, the way she'd beam at me as if I'd given her the world. My chest ached, but I also felt proud. I had given her everything I could. And no matter what she said now, no one could take away the truth of those years. For a few hours I felt steady again. I cooked myself a proper breakfast, fried eggs and bacon, and sat down to eat it while the sunlight warmed the kitchen. Maybe, I thought, this was the start of a new chapter. A hard one, yes, but one where I wasn't a victim anymore. But peace never lasts long when you're dealing with people who thrive on drama. That evening, as I sat in my recliner with the television murmuring in the background, my phone buzzed. I expected Margaret checking in. Instead, I saw a flood of notifications, emails, texts, even messages from neighbors. Confused, I opened Facebook, and there it was, a post from Carla. I never thought I'd see the day when my own father would steal from me. I bought him a lottery ticket for Father's Day, with the agreement we'd share any winnings. He threw me out of his life, revoked my access to our family money, and humiliated me in front of everyone. Greed changes people. Pray for us. This has broken my heart. The words punched the air from my lungs. My thumb scrolled down. Comments stacked up like bricks in a wall. "OMG, Carla, I'm so sorry. That's awful. Your dad should be grateful to have a daughter like you. Family money is meant for family, not for hoarding. Greed destroys everything." 47 likes. 23 comments. And growing. I leaned back, the room spinning. She had turned the tables, made me the villain, and people believed her. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Neighbors who usually waved now averted their eyes. At the grocery store, the cashier, someone I'd known for 20 years, looked at me differently, as though weighing whether I was the kind of man who'd steal from his own child. Even Margaret called, her voice trembling. "Stephen, what in God's name is going on? Carla says you cut her off, that you took her ticket. Is it true?" I tried to explain. I told her about the $15,000 theft, about the cruise, about the lottery ticket tossed like a joke. Margaret listened, but I could hear the uncertainty in her silence. "I want to believe you," she said finally. "But Stephen, she's telling everyone the opposite." That crushed me more than anything. To be doubted by my own sister. I hung up, set the phone on the table, and stared at the quiet kitchen. The relief I'd felt just a day before had evaporated. My small victory revoking Carla's access was nothing compared to the war she'd just started. I glanced at the trash can, where the crumpled lottery ticket still lay among coffee grounds and scraps. For a moment I thought about digging it out, smoothing it again, clinging to some foolish hope. But I didn't move. What good was a ticket? What good was luck, when your own child could paint you as a thief and turn the world against you? I sat in that silence, the glow of my laptop screen casting long shadows, and realized the truth. Carla didn't just want money. She wanted control. She wanted to erase me, piece by piece, until I was nothing but a cautionary tale. The temporary relief I'd felt was gone, replaced by something heavier, something darker. Because this wasn't just about a bank account anymore. It was about my name, my dignity, my place in a world that suddenly seemed eager to believe the worst of me. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my core, this was only the beginning. The first sign that things were getting out of hand came early one morning when my phone buzzed nonstop before I'd even finished my first sip of coffee. I glanced at the screen and felt my chest tighten. Messages from neighbors, emails from old coworkers, even an alert from the local news blog. Carla's Facebook post had spread. It wasn't just a few sympathetic comments anymore. It had become a wildfire. Dozens of shares, then hundreds. People I barely knew were weighing in, their words dripping with judgment. Unbelievable! Imagine a father stealing from his own daughter. Elder greed is a real problem. Poor Carla. If I were her, I'd sue him for every penny. I scrolled, my stomach twisting. Faces I'd known for years, neighbors I'd helped shovel snow for, customers whose cars I'd fixed for half price when money was tight were siding with her. My decades of quiet integrity evaporated in a few careless words typed by my daughter. By noon, it wasn't just Facebook. Carla had posted a tear-stained video on Instagram, mascara streaking down her cheeks as she whispered into the camera. My father, he took everything. He promised we'd share, but then he shut me out. I don't even know who he is anymore. Please pray for us. The performance was perfect, vulnerable, heartbreaking, false. I slammed me laptop shut, me hands shaking. I'd seen her use that same performance as a teenager when she wanted to manipulate me, fake tears, trembling voice, just enough vulnerability to trigger my protective instincts. Back then, it worked. This time I knew better. But the rest of the world didn't. That afternoon, Margaret called again. Stephen, I'm worried. People are calling me, asking if it's true. Did you really take her lottery ticket? She threw it at me like trash, I snapped. It was a gift, and she bought it with money she stole from me. Margaret sighed heavily. I believe you. But Stephen, everyone else only hears her side. She was right, and that was the most dangerous part. Within days, the whispers spread through my own neighborhood. At the grocery store, a couple I'd known since Linda was alive turned their backs when I walked down the aisle. The cashier barely made eye contact. Even at church, where I'd sat in the same pew for 20 years, I felt the stares. Carla's narrative was simple and effective. A greedy old man stole from his daughter. Who were people going to believe the polished young mother with tears on her cheeks, or the retired mechanic who kept to himself? I tried ignoring it, but the campaign only escalated. Eric joined in. On LinkedIn, he posted long, polished paragraphs about reverse elder abuse, painting me as a controlling miser who had emotionally manipulated Carla for years. He signed it with his company's logo, giving it the air of professional credibility. His words were poison, but they spread fast. Former clients of his shared the post, adding their own sanctimonious comments about the importance of family loyalty. My name was dragged through boardrooms and country clubs before I even knew what hit me. The low point came when I checked the neighborhood app, Nextdoor. A thread with over 100 comments debated whether I should be boycotted by the community. Don't support greedy people. He's always been odd, now we know why. Poor Carla. Imagine being betrayed by your own father. I closed the app and sat in the dark, my hands gripping the armrests of my recliner. All I'd done was protect myself. I had revoked her access after she stole from me. But somehow, she had turned me into the villain of the story. One evening, I made the mistake of answering an unknown number. Mr. Woods, this is Channel 6 News. We'd like a comment on the ongoing dispute regarding the lottery ticket. My throat went dry. No comment, I muttered, hanging up. Minutes later, the phone rang again. This time a lawyer's office. We specialize in lottery disputes. Free consultation. I slammed the phone down, my heart pounding. They were circling me like vultures, waiting to feed on the carcass of my reputation. Even my safe places became hostile. At the diner where I'd eaten Saturday breakfasts for years, the waitress who always called me Hone now avoided my table. She poured coffee with tight lips, then walked away quickly. At night I couldn't sleep. The quiet of my house, once comforting, now felt like a tomb echoing with betrayal. I lay awake, hearing Carla's words replay in my mind. It's not stealing when it's family. Eric showed us what real generosity looks like. The worst part wasn't the lies themselves. It was how easily people believed them. For decades, I'd lived an honest life, paid my bills, helped my neighbors, raised my daughter with every ounce of energy I had. And in a matter of days, that life had been rewritten into a cautionary tale of greed and selfishness. One evening, I walked outside just to clear my head. 3 neighbors stood near my mailbox, whispering. When they saw me, they scattered like children caught misbehaving. I stood in the driveway, staring at the empty space where they'd been, my fists clenched at my sides. I wanted to scream, to knock on every door and tell the truth. But what good would it do? In the court of public opinion, Carla had already won. Back inside, I sat at my kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. On the table lay a stack of printed screenshots, Carla's posts, Eric's posts, the comments and lies spreading like weeds. I stared at them, the evidence of my own destruction. I whispered into the silence, "Why, Carla? Why wasn't I enough?" No answer came. Just the echo of my own voice, swallowed by the 4 walls of a house that felt less like a home with every passing day. I didn't know it then, but the storm was only beginning. She had taken my money, she had taken my dignity, and now she was after my very identity. The smear campaign wasn't just about reputation, it was about erasing me completely. And though I didn't know how yet, I swore to myself that I would fight back. By the 3rd week after Father's Day, I felt like a man walking through quicksand. Every move I made only seemed to sink me deeper. The whispers in the neighborhood had turned to outright avoidance. Old friends stopped calling. At the grocery store, people glanced at me like I carried some kind of shameful disease. My phone had become a weapon against me. Each buzz brought more dread. Carla's posts multiplied, each one more venomous than the last. She painted me as a selfish miser who had turned against his own flesh and blood. Eric polished the lies with his professional tone, dressing them up in the language of ethics and financial integrity. Together, they created a story so neat, so convincing, that truth no longer mattered. One morning, I made the mistake of scrolling through the comments again. Shame on him. Some people shouldn't be parents. Greed rots the soul. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling. These people didn't know me. They didn't know the years I spent working until my back screamed, just to put food on the table. They didn't know how many nights I stayed up with a sick child, how many birthdays I scraped together, something special even when money was tight. To them, I was just a headline, a villain. Margaret called again, her voice tight with worry. "Stephen, it's everywhere now. I saw it on the local news website. They quoted Carla. They're calling it the lottery feud." "Oh, the news," I whispered. "Yes, Stephen. They're painting you as the greedy father who betrayed his daughter. I tried leaving a comment to defend you, but people tore me apart." Her words gutted me. Even my sister couldn't shield me. That night, I sat in my recliner, staring at the ceiling. The lottery ticket lay hidden in a drawer, but I couldn't even look at it. To me, it wasn't a blessing anymore. It was a curse. The very thing that had exposed the rot in my family, the very thing that had given Carla a weapon to destroy me. Sleep refused to come. At 2 in the morning, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the trash can. I thought about throwing the ticket away for good this time, just rid myself of it. If the money hadn't been drawn yet, I could at least escape the possibility. But I didn't move. My legs felt heavy, my heart heavier. The next day, the crisis deepened. Carla's latest post went viral in a way the others hadn't. She included a photo of me taken last Christmas, when I sat in my living room wearing the sweater she had given me years before. My face looked stern, almost unfriendly in that candid shot. Underneath, she wrote, "This is the man who raised me, the man who stole my lottery ticket and humiliated me. He refuses to share even though we had an agreement. Please share this story so no one else suffers the way I have." The photo spread like wildfire. My inbox filled with hate mail from strangers. "You're a disgrace. Give her what she deserves. Rot in hell, old man." I sat at the table, staring at the printed comments, and felt utterly alone. The knock at my door startled me. When I opened it, a reporter stood there, Microphone in hand, camera crew behind him. "Mr. Woods, do you have a statement about the accusations that you stole your daughter's lottery ticket?" I froze. My throat closed. The neighbors across the street stood on their porches, watching. I could feel their eyes burning into me. "No comment," I croaked, shutting the door. The humiliation was complete. That night I broke down. I sat in the dark living room, holding a framed photo of Carla when she was 7 years old, missing her front teeth, grinning with an ice cream cone in hand. I pressed the glass to my forehead and wept. "Where did you go, sweetheart?" I whispered. "Where's the little girl who used to say I was her hero?" The walls gave no answer. At church that Sunday, I walked in and felt the shift immediately. Conversations hushed. Eyes followed me. When I slid into my pew, the couple in front of me stood up and moved 2 rows ahead. The pastor delivered his sermon, but I couldn't hear a word. My mind was a storm of shame. I left before the closing hymn, unable to bear the stairs. Back home, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, something I hadn't done since Linda's funeral. The burn of it down my throat was harsh, but for a moment it quieted the noise in my head. I thought about just disappearing, selling the house, moving to another state where no one knew my name, leaving Carla, the gossip, the shame, all of it behind. But then I thought about Linda, about the promise I'd made at her grave to always look after our daughter. That promise had guided me for years. Now it mocked me. How do you keep a promise to someone who treats you like an enemy? By midnight, I was pacing the living room, my mind unraveling. Every path forward felt blocked. If I fought back, Carla would twist it. If I stayed silent, I'd be crushed under the weight of her lies. I whispered to the empty room, "I've lost. I've already lost." For the first time in my life, I felt like giving up. And that was the crisis, standing in my own home, surrounded by memories of sacrifices no one valued, with a reputation shattered. My daughter turned against me, and no hope in sight. All seemed lost. The night it happened, I wasn't even paying attention. I had the television on for background noise, flipping through channels the way you do when your mind is too heavy to settle on anything. I landed on the local news, then a cooking show, then a sitcom I'd seen 100 times. Nothing held me. Then the state lottery program came on. I almost switched again. Why would I want to watch strangers celebrate money I would never have? But something in the announcer's cheerful tone kept me there. "Good evening, Ohio. Tonight's Powerball jackpot is $120 million. Let's find out if you're the lucky winner." My remote hovered over the button. I should have changed the channel. Should have spared myself the reminder of that stupid ticket lying crumpled in my kitchen trash. But I didn't. The announcer read the numbers one by one. 7, 14, 23, 35, 40, 2, and the Powerball is 18. I froze. My chest tightened. My hands went numb. I knew those numbers. I had seen them before, stared at them long enough to memorize them in anger. They weren't just numbers, they were burned into my memory, because they belonged to the ticket Carla had tossed at me like garbage, the ticket in my trash. I shot to my feet so fast, the remote clattered to the floor. My legs felt like jelly as I stumbled into the kitchen. The trash can sat in the corner, innocent as ever. My heart pounded like a drum. With trembling hands, I dug through the garbage coffee grounds, banana peels, scraps of paper. My fingers brushed something crumpled and sticky, stuck to the side of a yogurt container. The ticket. I pulled it out, smeared with grounds, edges damp. My breath caught in my throat. I smoothed it against the counter, staring at the numbers. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball, 18. Every single one matched. For a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room tilted, and I gripped the counter just to stay upright. $120 million. The joke gift, the humiliation, the insult that had cut deeper than any words. It was worth a fortune. My hands shook so badly I nearly tore the paper in half. I grabbed the phone and dialed the lottery hotline, following the automated prompts. My voice cracked as I repeated the numbers into the receiver. The mechanical voice replied, "Congratulations! The winning numbers for tonight's Powerball drawing are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball, 18. The jackpot amount is $120 million. I dropped the phone onto the counter, staring at the filthy scrap of paper like it was alive. I wanted to scream, laugh, cry all at once. But nothing came out, only silence. Slowly I sat at the table, the ticket laid carefully in front of me. I stared at it for what felt like hours, my mind racing. Carla's voice echoed in my head. If you win, half is mine. Half. She'd claimed half of a joke. Half of something she'd bought with money stolen from me. She had no idea what she'd given away. No idea that the garbage gift she used to shame me would turn into the very thing that could free me or destroy her. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw numbers glowing like neon signs. I saw Carla's smirk, Edward's smug approval, the laughter at the dinner table, and then I saw their faces when they found out what the ticket was really worth. Morning came, and I still sat at the table, the ticket now sealed inside a plastic sleeve I dug out of an old binder. My coffee grew cold as I dialed the Ohio Lottery Commission. Mr. Woods. The woman's voice was professional, calm. Yes, sir. We can verify your ticket in person. Please bring identification and the ticket to our office. Given the jackpot size, the verification process will take 48 hours. I barely processed her words as I signed the form she emailed. All I could think was, this is real. This is happening. On the drive downtown, the city looked different. Brighter. Or maybe it was me who had changed. The corner store I'd shopped at for years. The diner where I ate Saturday breakfasts. The church where Linda's funeral had been held suddenly. They all looked smaller, like props in a play I'd outgrown. Inside the lottery office, a woman named Janet scanned the ticket with practiced hands. This is indeed a winning ticket, she confirmed, her tone almost casual. I wanted to laugh. Casual? Did she realize what she had just said? That this battered scrap of paper was worth more than all the hours I'd worked in my entire life? But I kept calm, signed what they asked, nodded when they explained taxes and payment options. My head spun with figures, tens of millions after deductions, choices between lump sum or annuity. It felt surreal, like I was floating above my own body. When I walked out of the building, the winter air slapped my face, grounding me. I clutched the folder of documents to my chest, my pulse still racing. I thought of Carla again. I could picture her reaction so clearly it almost made me smile. The woman who had laughed at my cheap gift, who had stolen from me without shame, who had paraded her favoritism for Edward in front of my entire family, she would soon learn the truth. But I also knew her. Knew the greed in her eyes, the entitlement in her voice. She wouldn't congratulate me. She wouldn't apologize. She would come for it. She would try to twist it, claim it, steal it all over again. That night, back in my quiet kitchen, I laid the documents on the table and stared at them. My heart swelled with something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt the tide turning. I wasn't just the humiliated father anymore. I wasn't just the man being smeared online. I had a hidden card, a weapon, and I intended to play it. Because the numbers didn't just match. They promised justice. I thought the storm would only grow worse once news of my win leaked out. And I was right. Within hours of the Lottery Commission confirming my name, Carla pounced like a hawk spotting prey. She barged into my house without knocking, her eyes glittering with greed. "Dad," I heard, "we won. Remember? Half is mine." Oh. I sat at my kitchen table, the official lottery document spread before me like evidence in a trial. "It was a gift, Carla. Gifts belong to the receiver. That ticket is mine." Her face hardened. "Don't play games with me. Everyone at dinner heard me say it half. That's a contract. I'll take you to court if I have to." Her voice cracked like a whip, sharp and cold. She slammed her fist on my table, rattling the papers. Then she stormed out, her tires squealing down the driveway. The next morning, the online campaign resumed, fiercer than ever. Carla posted tearful videos accusing me of betrayal. Eric wrote long essays about family integrity. The mob roared again, this time with even more fuel. He stole his daughter's fortune. Greedy old man. Disgusting. My phone rang constantly, lawyers offering help, Reporters begging for statements, neighbors whispering behind curtains. The pressure was unbearable. Then came the call that changed everything. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice was calm, deliberate. "Mr. Woods, this is William Johnson, Eric's father." I nearly dropped the receiver. Eric's father, the patriarch of their wealthy family. Why would he call me? "I believe we need to talk," he said firmly. "Can you meet me at Murphy's Diner on 5th Street in an hour?" I hesitated. My gut warned me of a trap. Maybe they wanted to corner me, to force me into some kind of settlement. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. "What's this about?" "The lottery ticket," William said simply, "and what I witnessed on Father's Day." My heart skipped. You were there?" "I was, and I remember exactly what happened." His tone carried weight, the voice of a man used to being believed. 1 hour, Murphy's Diner. The line went dead. I almost didn't go. My nerves screamed against it, but something in his voice told me he wasn't calling to threaten. He was calling because he'd seen the truth. Murphy's Diner was the kind of place I'd always felt comfortable in. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, the smell of bacon and strong coffee hanging in the air. I spotted William immediately. He sat in a booth by the window, his navy suit crisp, his silver hair combed back neatly. He looked every inch the businessman, yet out of place in the humble diner. "Mr. Woods," he said, rising to shake my hand. His grip was firm, his eyes steady. "Thank you for coming." Lo! I slid into the booth across from him. The waitress, Dolores, poured us both coffee without asking. She gave me a kind smile, but her eyes lingered on William, curious. William wasted no time. "I saw the whole thing that day. I heard your daughter toss you that lottery ticket with a laugh. I heard her call it a Father's Day gift. There was no discussion of sharing. No contract, no agreement. It was a gift, plain and simple." I blinked at him, unsure if I could trust my ears. "Then why are you telling me this?" He sighed, leaning back in the booth. "Because my son has forgotten everything I taught him. Integrity. Honor. Eric was raised better than this, but he let greed blind him. And Carla, she's taken to it like a moth to a flame. They're destroying your reputation with lies, and I won't stand by silently while my family ruins another man's name." I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception, but all I saw was weariness, and maybe shame. "You'd go against your own son?" I asked carefully. William's laugh was bitter. "Blood means nothing if it's rotten. My reputation was built on honesty. I can't watch Eric drag it through the mud." He pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly. "I've already drafted a statement." He turned the screen toward me. I read his words. "As a witness to the Father's Day gathering at Stephen Woods' home, I can confirm that the lottery ticket was given as a gift, without conditions or agreements. Any claims to the contrary are false. Mr. Woods is the rightful owner. It pains me that my own family has spread lies, but I will not remain silent while an honest man's reputation is destroyed." My throat tightened. This was it, the lifeline I hadn't dared hope for. Proof from someone whose word carried weight. "You don't have to do this," I whispered. "Yes, I do," William said firmly. "Because the truth matters, and because Eric needs to learn that lies have consequences." He hit post. Immediately, notifications lit up his phone. Comments poured in from business associates, community leaders, friends who trusted his word. Support flooded in. If William Johnson says it, I believe it. This changes everything. I felt a weight lift from my chest, like the first gasp of air after being underwater too long. For weeks I had been drowning in lies. Now, someone with authority had spoken the truth. We sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee as the diner bustled around us. Families laughed over pancakes, teenagers texted at their tables, an elderly couple shared a newspaper. Life went on, ordinary and steady, while mine was being rewritten. Finally, William set his cup down. "Mr. Woods, you have a long road ahead. Money this big. It brings out the worst in people. But don't let them take your dignity. You've earned your peace. Don't let anyone steal it again." I swallowed hard and nodded. "Thank you. I won't forget this." Outside, We shook hands by our cars, his sleek black Mercedes, my old Ford sedan. As he drove away, I stood for a moment, the winter wind tugging at my coat. For the first time in months, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. The war wasn't over. Carla and Eric wouldn't back down easily. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had an ally. An unexpected one, maybe, but a powerful one. And with the truth on my side, I was ready for whatever came next. The lottery commission called 2 weeks later. My verification was complete, they said, and they invited me to a public ceremony in Columbus. Transparency helps, the woman explained. Given the noise around your case, it will show everyone the truth. I hesitated at first. I wasn't the kind of man who liked spotlights. My life had been lived under fluorescent shop lights, not camera flashes. But after all the lies Carla and Eric had spread, I knew I needed this. Not just for me, but for my dignity. So I said yes. That morning, I dressed in the only suit I owned, the navy one I'd bought for Linda's funeral. I straightened the tie Carla had once given me for Christmas, back when she still meant her words. My reflection in the mirror looked older, maybe, but steadier than I had in weeks. When I arrived, the building buzzed with energy. Cameras lined the stage. Reporters shuffled papers, adjusting microphones. Officials from the lottery smiled professionally, ushering me into position. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced Janet, the lottery director, "we are pleased to present our newest winner of the $120 million Powerball jackpot, Mr. Stephen Woods." Applause burst out. Flashes erupted. They handed me an oversized check, so big it took 2 people to hold. The cameras clicked, capturing every second. I stepped to the microphone. My voice trembled at first, but then steadied. "I never expected this blessing," I said. "I plan to use it responsibly, to help others, and to live with dignity." Reporters shouted questions. "What will you do with the money? How do you feel? Will you quit working?" I answered honestly. I talked about starting a foundation, maybe reopening an auto restoration shop. I focused on gratitude, not the family drama. And then I saw her, Carla, pushing through the crowd, her face red, her hair perfectly styled, her voice shrill over the noise. "Stop!" she screamed. "That ticket was mine!" The room erupted. Cameras swiveled toward her, recording every move. Security moved quickly, but not fast enough. She pushed closer, pointing at me with trembling hands. "He stole it from me. We had an agreement. Half the winnings were mine." I looked at her, my heart heavy. This wasn't the daughter I'd raised. This was a stranger, blinded by greed. "Carla," I said into the microphone, my voice calm, "that ticket was a gift. You gave it to me, in front of witnesses. Your own father-in-law confirmed it." The crowd murmured. The reporters pounced. "Mr. Johnson, is that true?" they asked, turning to William, who had quietly arrived and stood near the back. William stepped forward, his posture straight, his voice firm. "It's true. I was there. She gave it as a gift. There was no talk of sharing." "Oh?" Gasps rippled through the room. The truth, spoken publicly by someone of his standing, landed like a hammer blow. Carla's face contorted. She shook her head violently. "No, that's not. He's lying." But the cameras were rolling. The microphones caught every word, and the audience had already seen her desperation, her wild gestures, her shrieking tone. Security finally moved her back, but the damage was done. The moment would play on every news channel by evening. The greedy daughter trying to snatch her father's fortune, only to be shut down by her own father-in-law's testimony. I felt no triumph, only a deep, aching sadness. But there was justice in it, too. After the ceremony, I walked through the lobby, oversized check in hand. Outside, reporters swarmed, peppering me with more questions. I answered what I could, repeating the same truth. The ticket was a gift. From the corner of my eye, I saw Eric dragging Carla toward their car. His voice was raised, his gestures sharp. She pulled back, her face twisted with fury. For the first time, cracks showed in their united front. The footage aired that night. Every channel showed it. Local father wins $120 million. Daughter crashes ceremony claiming ticket. Clips of Carla's outburst went viral, her face red, her voice screeching. Memes appeared within hours. The internet turned. The same people who had once believed her lies now mocked her. Entitled much? Imagine stealing from your dad and then demanding half his winnings. This backfired spectacularly. Eric's business contacts pulled away, his LinkedIn filled with awkward silence where there had once been support. Carla's friends unfollowed her. Her reputation collapsed in real time. Karma had arrived, not in whispers, but in headlines. For me, the punishment wasn't about seeing her embarrassed. It was about truth finally being stronger than lies. It was about standing on a stage, holding that check, and knowing I hadn't been erased. That night, I sat in my kitchen again, the oversized check propped against the wall. The house was quiet, but it felt different now. Not like a tomb, but like a fortress. I had survived the smear campaign. I had endured the humiliation. And in the end, the truth had stood tall. Carla and Eric, they were left with their own wreckage, social ruin, financial doubt, fractured pride. I didn't need to lift a finger. Their greed had dug the hole, and the world had watched them fall into it. That was karma. That was justice. The morning after the ceremony, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the front page of the newspaper. My name in bold print stretched across the top. Local father wins $120 million, daughter's outburst goes viral. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. And in a way I did. The truth was finally public. Carla's lies had been exposed under the bright lights of the cameras. For once, the world saw her for what she had become. But as I read the article, sipping my coffee, all I felt was tired. Tired of the noise, the fighting, the endless games. Money hadn't created these problems, it had only revealed what had been festering all along. A knock came at the door. I opened it to find Carla standing there, her hair disheveled, her eyes rimmed red from either crying or lack of sleep. "Dad, can we talk?" Her voice was small, almost childlike. I stepped aside, letting her in. She perched on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands in her lap. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she whispered. I panicked. Eric's been pressuring me so much. We're in trouble. The house, the credit cards, his business. It's all falling apart. I didn't know what else to do. Ove. I listened silently, my arms crossed. She went on, painting a picture of sleepless nights, overdue bills, looming foreclosure. "We just need a little help," she pleaded. $2 million would fix everything. That's nothing compared to what you have now. You'd still have more than $100 million left. Her words hung in the air like smoke. $2 million. Casual, like asking to borrow $20 for gas. I studied her face. The tears, the tremor in her voice, the desperation. Once upon a time, I would have given in. I would have sold my soul to ease her suffering. But I saw it clearly now. The same performance I'd seen before. The same manipulation. The same hunger that would never be satisfied. "Carla," I said quietly, "you stole from me. You humiliated me. You tried to take what was mine, and now you want me to reward that behavior with millions of dollars? This is different," she snapped, her mask slipping. "We're talking about losing everything: our house, Jake's school, our life. Are you really going to let your own grandson suffer?" I felt a pang at the mention of Jake. But then her eyes hardened, her voice sharp again. "If you don't help us, don't expect to be part of his life anymore. No visits, no Christmas, no graduations, nothing." I stood, my voice steady. "If that's your choice, Carla, I'll accept it. But I will not be manipulated anymore. Not by you. Not by Eric." "Ove." For a moment, shock flickered across her face. Then anger. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You've changed," she hissed. "Money has made you cruel." I met her gaze, unflinching. "No, Carla, money has made me free." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I stood there in the silence, my heart heavy, but also lighter than it had been in years. That was the last time she came to my house. 3 months later, the moving truck pulled away from my old neighborhood. I'd sold the house quietly, leaving behind the gossip, the stares, the whispers. I wanted a fresh start. I drove 2 hours west, settling in Dayton. There, I bought a modest home on a quiet street, where no one knew me as the lottery winner or the greedy father. I was just Stephen Woods, new neighbor. But the house wasn't the only thing I bought. Henderson's classic auto restoration had been for sale for months. The owner, Tom Henderson, was retiring. The shop still smelled of motor oil and old leather, tools lined neatly on the walls, project cars gathering dust in the bays. The first time I walked through, I ran my hand along the fender of a 2067 Mustang. My heart swelled. This was where I belonged. Not in courtrooms, not in headlines, but here, with engines and grease and the satisfaction of fixing what was broken. Within weeks, Henderson's became Wood's Classic Auto Restoration. I hired 3 local mechanics, young men hungry to learn. I paid them fair wages, better than I'd ever earned myself. And I started something else too, the Single Fathers Foundation, a small nonprofit funded by a portion of my winnings, aimed at helping men raising kids alone. I remembered those days after Linda died, when I was drowning in bills and grief, trying to be both mother and father to Carla. If I could ease that burden for even one man, it would mean something. Dayton welcomed me quietly. At the diner down the street, the waitress poured my coffee without judgment. At church, people greeted me warmly, with no whispers attached to my name. In the evenings, neighbors dropped by with pies or cookies, just to say hello. One night, I stood in the shop after closing, staring at a restored 2055 Chevy we'd just finished. The owner wept when he picked it up, saying it had been his father's pride and joy. I understood completely. That's when I realized I had found my peace. Yes, I had money now, more than I could ever spend. But money wasn't what gave me peace. It was the freedom to live on my own terms, to build, to give back, to surround myself with honest people. As for Carla, I thought of her sometimes. I wondered if she regretted her choices, if she missed me, if she'd ever tell Jake the truth. But I didn't dwell on it. Some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. In my office, above the desk, hung a frame containing that lottery ticket, not as a trophy, not as a reminder of wealth, but as a lesson. A reminder that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as insults, and sometimes the hardest lessons come wrapped in pain. I leaned back in my chair, the sounds of the shop humming in the background, and allowed myself a small, quiet smile. For the first time in years, I felt whole again. It's a strange thing, sitting alone in your living room after the storm has passed. For months, my life felt like a battlefield: accusations, betrayals, public humiliation. Every day I woke wondering what new lie Carla and Eric would spread, what fresh judgment the world would throw at me. Now, in the quiet of my Dayton home, those days feel like another lifetime. The clock ticks softly on the wall. A lamp casts warm light across the room. My shop is closed for the evening, the foundation's paperwork filed away neatly. Life, at last, feels simple again. But peace didn't come without cost. I lost something more valuable than money could ever replace: the daughter I thought I knew. When Linda died, I promised at her graveside that I'd always protect Carla. I kept that promise as best I could, working double shifts, selling my car, sacrificing everything for her education and her future. I believed love and sacrifice were enough to guarantee loyalty. But what I learned is harder to swallow. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. Carla's betrayal didn't begin with a lottery ticket. It began long before, with little dismissals, with favoritism toward Edward, with her growing obsession with wealth and appearances. The ticket simply shone a spotlight on what was already there. And yet, despite everything, a part of me still aches when I think of her. I remember her as a child, running into my arms after school, clutching drawings she made for me. I remember her laugh, the way she used to call me her hero. Those memories are mine, untouched by the woman she became. Do I hate her? No, but I don't enable her anymore either. That's the lesson I carry forward. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's submission. It took me nearly 70 years to understand that. When the world believed her lies, I thought I had lost everything: my reputation, my dignity, my place in the community. But in losing those things, I gained something far more precious: freedom. Freedom from being controlled by her approval, freedom from being erased by her comparisons to Edward, Freedom from the cycle of giving and giving until nothing was left of me. Now, my days are filled with work that matters. Restoring old cars, helping single fathers, sharing coffee with neighbors who see me as a man, not a headline. And I realize something else, too. The ticket itself, the $120 million, was never the real gift. The real gift was clarity. That slip of paper forced the truth out into the open. It stripped away the illusions and showed me who my daughter really was, who my so-called family valued, and what I truly meant to them. Painful, yes, but necessary. Sometimes life doesn't hand us blessings wrapped in ribbons. Sometimes it hands us lessons disguised as garbage. I framed that ticket not because it made me rich, but because it made me free. To anyone listening, maybe you've been where I was overlooked, dismissed, made to feel like you didn't matter. Maybe you've poured yourself out for family, only to be repaid with indifference or betrayal. It's a wound deeper than most people realize. But let me tell you something. Your worth isn't measured by their treatment of you. It's measured by the life you've built, by the love you gave, by the honesty you carried even when no one noticed. Carla may have taken my money, my reputation for a while, even tried to take my dignity. But in the end, she couldn't. Because dignity is something no one can steal, not unless you hand it over. I sometimes wonder what Jake will think when he's older, when he learns the full story. Will he see me as the villain his mother painted, or as the grandfather who quietly stepped away rather than feed the fire? Only time will tell. What I do know is this: the next generation deserves a better lesson than the one Carla chose to teach. That's why I built the foundation. That's why I still show up at my shop every morning, roll up my sleeves, and put in an honest day's work. Because the world needs examples of integrity, not entitlement. And so I end my story with a question, not for me, but for you. When money enters the picture, when wealth or inheritance or power comes into play, does it change who people are? Or does it simply reveal who they've been all along? Think about that the next time you hear promises of loyalty, the next time someone laughs at your sacrifice, the next time you're tempted to doubt your own worth. As for me, I choose peace, I choose dignity, I choose freedom. And that, more than $120 million, is the richest I have ever been.